all religions are not equal. I was born in the Middle East under Islam, and I am now on a death sentence because I don't practice the religion anymore. Yes, there are religions that are very harmful to society. Some religions that are very harmful to the human spirit, to society as a whole, to the political system. Look at all Middle Eastern cultures, all their governments, from one revolution to another, from one coup d'etat to another, non-stop. Is that a coincidence? Do they have a religion that makes their society or that helps them produce an orderly society? I don't believe so. And that's why I can't visit the Middle East, where I came from, because I'll be killed by the religion I was born into. Not all religions are equal. Some religions are very helpful to society, and that's why I became Christian. Human nature, however, by itself is perfectly capable of harming society with or without religion. Because a religion like Islam has to protect itself constantly. It seeks to survive at the expense of human rights. There's a sheikh called Sheikh Qaradawi. Recently, it's on YouTube. You can watch him. He's the top authority on Sunni Islam. He's one of the top authorities. And he recently said that apostasy has to be punished by death, because if Islam abandons death for apostates, Islam will not exist. The top leaders of Islam cannot let go of the death penalty for apostasy in Islam. Why? Because even they don't believe that their religion can survive without government enforcement of the death penalty. The death penalty is part of Sharia. It's in all the schools of Sharia. It condemns those who leave Islam to death. This is a fact in all Sharia schools of law. Okay? In the process of protecting their religion, what happens with Islam is that process of protecting Islam, they have produced an ideology that is anti-human beings, anti-freedom, because Islam needs to survive, and it has produced rights, certain rights to the religion, not to be offended. You have a religion that has a right not to be offended under penalty of death, while at the same time that religion seeks to control government. Islam, one of the, has to control government. Islam without government enforcement does not have any strength to survive without government enforcement. So you have a religion that relies on government enforcement while at the same seeks government. What is the problem with all the revolutions in the Middle East right now? What's the problem? The problem is a fight between people who want Islam to control government and between people who don't want Islam to control government. Under Islamic theology, Islam cannot exist without government control. And that's why they have all this chaos in the Middle East, between those who want government control and those who don't want government control. But at the same time, the same religion that wants to seek government does not allow, under penalty of death, criticism. It's offended always. Don't offend me, because I'm a religion. If you offend me, or if you criticize me, then you're an Islamophobe. And I refuse that premise. I refuse that premise because if a religion seeks government to control government, that religion has opened itself to criticism. It cannot seek government enforcement. It cannot seek government enforcement and at the same time forbid criticism. If you want to be in control of government, then you have to accept criticism. And this is the dilemma of Islam. Thank you. I was invited by Al Arabiya TV network, an interview about me having a website called Arabs for Israel. The first question, of course, the guy was talking to me on the show with disgust. You betrayed your father because my father fought Israel. He killed a lot of Israelis, his people. And they killed some of his guys too. And they told me, how could you forgive the Jews? They killed your father. And my answer was forgiveness. How about the concept of forgiveness? He couldn't understand what I'm talking about. He immediately called me a traitor. And I have dishonored my father just for the idea of forgiveness. See, forgiveness is a value. You go to any synagogue, any church, you hear the word forgiveness as something good, something to aspire for. In my culture of origin, it's exactly the opposite. It means treason. Treason to your people. And that's why my whole family in Egypt, many of them don't talk to me anymore because I am on the side of America, on the side of Israel. I went to a synagogue with one of them. I went to a church with a Christian friend. And when I entered the synagogue, I said to myself, oh, okay, we're going to start hearing cursing of Muslims. Like in the mosque, we hear cursing of Jews and Christians. Are you aware that in mosque services all across the Middle East, the service always ends with cursing of non-Muslims? The sheikh, the Muslim sheikh would say, may God destroy the Jews and the infidels, the enemies of Allah. This is the ending of this spiritual experience of being in a mosque. And I was stunned that in the synagogue, they were praying for the whole world. Peace on earth. I left that day and I was like, something is wrong with my religion. Something is major wrong with my religion. I discovered that it's my religion that's cursing everybody and nobody's cursing us. It was an eye-opener for me. And I started wanting to know more. And the more I learned, the more I was discovering that, oh my God, the indoctrination I grew up with, the hatred I grew up with, was all a lie. It was all a propaganda. The reason Islam came to being is a reaction to repel Judaism and Christianity. And that's why 64% of the Quran is all about cursing Jews and Christians and non-Muslims, non-believers. Islam came to existence to assert the Arabian Peninsula culture, to make the Arabian Peninsula culture superior and to legitimize it against the coming infiltration of Judaism and Christianity. It's so obvious. If you read the Quran, it's all about this. It's all about comparing itself with the Judaism and Christianity and finding them at fault, finding them bad. This is a very negative kind of value system. Because a religion usually comes with new ideas. Okay, this is what I believe in, this is what I want my followers to do, and this is A, B, C, D, and E, and this is what I want to do. Islam is not like that. Islam doesn't want to talk to its people. It's talking about their enemies. Islam is consumed with its enemies. It doesn't talk to the hearts and minds of Muslim people that much. If you read the Quran, it's all about how Muslims must reject, hate, repel, and even kill non-Muslims. This is the basic value system in Islam. And the only way Allah, in Islam, the only way Allah will reward you with heaven is if you kill the enemies of Allah. In Islam, God, the God of Islam, needs his followers to kill his enemies. The God of Islam needs to venge by using Muslims, his followers, to kill the enemies of Allah, because Allah is incapable of handling his own enemies. That Islam is a negative ideology. It's a rejection against people that they don't like. It's a way to control other people. The values of Islam is all about control. Controlling women, controlling the citizens, what they do, how they eat, how they walk, how they talk, everything. Women, cover yourself or else you're asking for it. This is the value system in Islam. And it's exactly the opposite of the Judeo-Christian value system. And the reason there is animosity that is produced, why do we have an Arab-Israeli conflict? Muhammad, when he started his religion to preserve Arabian Peninsula culture, he wanted to preserve this culture. Don't change me. Don't come to tell me you love your neighbor like yourself. Don't come to tell me I'm going to have one wife only. Muhammad had 11 wives, and one of them was 6 years old when he married her. And he consummated the marriage when she was 9. And he had concubines. When he fought people in the war, he took the women as sexual slaves. So who are you to tell me that this is not fair or not good? Your religion is the bad one. I am the good one. This is where the split happens. And then Muhammad moved from Mecca when his own tribe didn't like him. His own Arab tribe didn't want to convert to Islam. He moved to Medina, which was a Jewish tribe. 3 tribes lived in Medina, all Jewish tribe. He moved there thinking he was telling his people in Mecca, I'm going to convert them. You didn't want me. Look, the Jews are going to convert. You'll see. So he moves to Medina thinking that the Jews will follow him and he'll make a good example to his own Arab tribe. And from Medina, he started attacking the trade caravans from Mecca, Arabs who were doing trade with Syria. Muhammad actually stood in the route of the caravans and attacked them, and he called them holy battles. Holy battles. In Islam, all of the documented battles of Muhammad were called holy battles against the enemies, the unbelievers. And he took the women as sexual slaves after the battle. And he took the caravans were using trade. He took the goodies. And this is a quote by Muhammad, by the way. And I'm quoting from Islamic books, not from my opinion. Muhammad said, I have been victorious through terror. The word terror is mentioned many times in the Quran. It's in the Quran. And he is proud of it as a way of becoming victorious and wealthy. And then the Jews started feeling scared. Look what this guy who came to live with us, he's killing his own people. They started getting scared, and rightfully so. So what happened? Muhammad started looking bad. What kind of prophet of Allah kills his own tribes to take their goodies? He started looking bad, and the Jewish people refused to convert to Islam. So he flipped. At the beginning, he called them nice names. You're gonna be the people of the book, you know. But when they didn't convert, he flipped completely. He expelled many of them. He wanted to kill them. There was a rabbi who pretended to convert to Islam in order to convince him not to kill them. This is all written in Islamic books, by the way. This is not written in Hebrew books. This is written in Islamic books. And then the books, Muslim books, describe what Muhammad did to the last Jewish tribe. He surrounded them until they were starving. He started digging trenches. And what did he do? He took all the men over puberty age, like over 12, and spent 2 days. The Prophet of Islam spent 2 days beheading them. And you wonder why they're beheading people now? The Muslims are beheading people on the internet, and they are proud. Allahu Akbar. He beheaded them, and after he beheaded them, he took the women, and he had the first pick. He picked a woman called Safiya, whom he killed her husband, her father, all her male relatives. And he made her his concubine, not a married woman, his sexual slave, until she died in his possession. He, after that, gave all the women to the soldiers and told them, pick your sexual slaves or whatever slaves, take all the children, convert them to Islam by force and make them slaves. After Muhammad did that, even by Arabian Peninsula standards, this was not holy. Even by Arabian Peninsula standards. Some of his soldiers were running away from him. They didn't want to kill the Jews because they lived with them in the same city. And there comes some verses in the Quran that tell the soldiers that ran away, you're going to be cursed, Allah will take you to hell. And he said in the Quran, those who go and kill the Jews will go to heaven. And don't worry, you're not killing them with your hand. It is Allah's hand that is killing them. This is all in the Quran. Muhammad was a tormented man. He had to find a reason for what he did, because even by Arabian Peninsula standard, this was not holy. Thus, the next day in the Quran, a verse came to Muhammad saying, we didn't kill with our hands. It's Allah's hand that killed them. And not only that, he said, and besides, we didn't kill any human beings. Jews are pigs and apes and enemies of Allah. They are descendants of apes and pigs. They are just like the animals that we slaughter to eat. This is how Islam tells Muslims what it feels to kill a Jew. You're not killing with your hand, you're killing with Allah's hand, and that's why they put their hands in the blood and say, yay, Allah's hand. Until today. This is a sick ideology, and nobody wants to talk about it. The last word of Muhammad to his followers was the following: O Muslim, O servant of Allah, go kill the Jews wherever you find them. And if they hide behind a rock or a tree, the rock and the tree will tell you, O Muslim, O servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. This is a verse in the Quran. This is a hadith by Muhammad. And it's being recited in every mosque in the Middle East to make Muslims and Arabs feel not guilty if they kill Jews. And not just not guilty, but proud, entitled. And those apes and pigs should not have the right to resist or defend themselves because they're enemies of Allah. This is the philosophy that Europe is catering. This is the philosophy that CNN is catering. And this is the philosophy that half the world is siding with the Palestinians. It's twisted. And this has to be exposed. This pathology has to be exposed. And that is why when Muhammad died, no Muslim could be truly forgive the Jews and just treat them as the rest of humanity. You know why? Because if they forgive the Jews and treat them as the rest of humanity, it means that their prophet was a mass murderer. The prophet was a mass murderer. So it became an existential problem for Islam. It's either Muhammad was a mass murderer or the Jews are apes, pigs, and enemies of Allah. Guess what Islam and Muslims chose? Of course, it was the fault of the Jews. The minute they forgive, the minute they treat the Jews as human beings, is the same day that Islam becomes null and void. It's an existential problem for Islam. And that's why we have an Arab-Israeli conflict. And that's why Arabs, after Muhammad died, expanded, conquered Egypt and Persia in the same year to 639. And they went to Jerusalem. 100 years after Muhammad died, they built a mosque on top of the ruins of the Solomon Temple, the Jewish temple. Why did they do that? Why didn't they build it next to it and just out of respect for the Jews? Why did, when they went to Egypt, they didn't build a mosque next to churches there? Because Egypt used to be a Christian nation. They converted the churches to mosques because Islam does not want to coexist. Islam wants to replace. It's not like Judaism and Christianity or Catholicism and Mormonism, or it's not like they both have the same building next to each other and say, hello, good morning. No, they want to replace. And that's why they went to Jerusalem thinking they're going to erase the memory of the Jews. Nobody will know that we committed an atrocity, a slaughter, a Holocaust in the 7th century against the Jews by Muhammad. It's an existential problem for Islam. And that's why a lot of people ask me, when are the Arabs going to be, when are Muslims going to realize, and reform their religion? It's impossible. Because the minute they reform their religion and accept the Jews as human beings is the same day that Islam and Muhammad become illegitimate. This is the truth. And that's why Islam, the number one enemy of Islam is the truth. The number one friend of Israel is the truth.
The number one thing that the Jews like is the truth, and Christians. We have a cultural problem over truth. And the world doesn't see it. The world have bought the world have bought this Islamic victimhood, this pathology that is confused. And unfortunately, Western media is confusing everybody. I mean, it's an atrocity that we have a media that's spreading falsehood. And there's, you can get the murderer and the family of the murdered person, and CNN will think and talk to the murderer and the family of the murdered person as equal. Which side is right and which side is wrong? We don't know. We don't want to take any side. That's what the media is telling us now. That everything is relative, everything is equal. This is the murderer, this is the family or the kids of the murdered party, and we really don't know who's at fault here. It's unbelievable. What's happening today in Israel is unbelievable.